Hello and welcome to the Novus Design Studio how-to video series. In this video I will show you how to make a buff stick or a sanding stick that is generally used by jewelers or goldsmiths to remove any rough edges made by a file. You generally also get them in 1200 grit, 600 grit and 400 grit, which is your roughest, 1200 being your finest grit. You will need a buff stick, masking tape, your grit choice of sandpaper. Just make sure that it matches whatever you marked on your buff stick with a permanent marker. The size of your buff stick is about 38 centimeters long by 3 centimeters wide by roughly about 5 to 6 millimeters thick. To start making your buff stick, you take your stick and you place half of the edge of the paper over your stick, and then you just tape it down with a strip of masking tape. Make sure it's nice and secure. Then flip it all over, so this way the sandpaper is facing up. If you flip it over, you see the back of the paper. Take your scriber, which is, you can also use any object that has sharp ends, as long as it doesn't just cut the paper. It must just be narrow enough so that it can score the paper. We only need to score the paper, not cut it. So you just push down against the edge of the buff stick, you turn it upright, score the paper again, and you keep scoring and rolling the stick, making sure that the paper is against the stick nice and tightly. This way you ensure that your corners are nice and sharp. If you need to sand right up against something, you've got a nice sharp crisp corner. So you keep scoring and rolling until you've used up the entire sheet of sandpaper. If there's a short piece left over like here, you can just score a few times, just so that piece comes away completely. And then you just use some masking tape to secure the sandpaper ends onto the stick. You also want to make sure that you don't put masking tape over your marking to show what grit sandpaper you used. So just push it down nice and tightly. Now we've got a whole sheet of sandpaper on our stick. So if we've used up a certain edge and we now want a fresh piece of sandpaper underneath, you can just tear off that piece and have a nice fresh sandpaper underneath.